one thing I always say about my channel when it comes to World of Tanks Blitz is I will have the newest and most relevant information way before any other channel, and that is definitely the case for today's video, as we are talking about Japanese heavies. Now, we already know that the Tier 10 Japanese heavy, known as the Type 71, is going to be the flagship of the next tech tree added into the game. But apart from Tier 10, this line starts at Tier 7, and obviously there's a Tier 7 tech tree, a Tier 8, and a Tier 9 tech tree that you're going to have to get through to get to the Tier 10. Now, I have information, pictures of what these tanks look like, and even their statistics in Super Test right now. So I'm going to be breaking into the Tier 7 in today's video, its armor profile and statistics. Tomorrow we'll be breaking into the Tier 8 and as well the Tier 9. So in front of you we have the Judo. This is the Tier 7 Heavy. It's quite a weird looking vehicle, almost like a Cheery, but then souped up. I really like the design of it, especially the spaced armor around the turret. Looks like it's going to be pretty well armored. And as I was able to take a quick peek of the armor in training rooms, it actually is quite strong. The upper plate is, I would say, decent. You can see here I made like a little picture of what it looks like on the upper plate, but I would say effectively, because I was aiming at it with an E25, the upper plate's about 230 millimeters thick. Very, very solid. However, the turret, even though the turret looks incredibly strong, it's got some pretty steep angles, it's actually not amazing. Even with the spaced armor, it's probably only about 180 millimeters thick. Like, if you're using the 10 degrees of gun depression this vehicle has, yeah, you'll probably get a lot of bounces on the turret, especially because this is a class at Tier 7, where most heavies only have around 170 millimeters of pen. So I do think that the armor on this tank is going to be extremely effective against Tier 7s, but against Tier 8s, which you will fight half of the time, it's not going to be amazing. The upper plate might get the occasional bounce here and there, and it might be really good at side scraping, but when it comes to the overall turret armor, you're not going to be getting many bounces. Now, one thing you'll notice about this Japanese heavy is that it's got a very similar gun mantlet to vehicles like the Hori. That's one thing I noticed straight out of the bat. And it also has a very similar gun to the Hori size. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, its damage per shot isn't anything crazy. It's only 310. And its damage per minute isn't anything crazy either at 2008. Well, the crazy part is the penetration. It has 180 on standard, which is okay for a heavy. Definitely a little bit higher than average, especially because this is with rammer. But it's the premium that is insane. Just like how the Hori has premium AP ammunition, this at Tier 7 has AP premium ammunition at 255 millimeters of pen. This tank gets shell normalization with both of its rounds, meaning that the 255 with the 5 degrees of shell normalization means it's more around 280 effective. If you are running calibrated, around 300 millimeters of effective pen. Why a Tier 7 needs that much pen, the world may never know. Just to put in your ideas, a Tiger 2's armor will turn to butter with this amount of penetration at Tier 7. A Tiger 2! So, yeah, it's going to be insane seeing what this tank's gun can do. Now, apart from the ridiculous pen, its aiming time is pretty poor at 4.9 seconds, and when you add that on with the absolutely atrocious dispersion at 0.389, yeah, this tank is not the most accurate. In fact, for the alpha it carries, it's one of the least accurate guns I've seen in Tier 7, so way less accurate than a T29. There are a lot of downsides to this tank, especially because this is with full equipment on. Yeah, not amazing. When we take a look at the turret armor, and as I said, it's only about 180, so you can very easily cut through the turret, especially the edges are much weaker, only about 100 millimeters on the side, so even angled, they are not amazing. And the hull, even though it says only 90, that's obviously not true, as that's only that thin bar on the front, but the upper plate, very solid. You will be getting bounces there. Now, you might have heard, but yeah, this tank has 10 degrees of gun depression, as you can see. 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of gun elevation. So that means this is going to be an extremely flexible tank that can work almost any ridgeline fairly easily. So you really shouldn't have to worry about putting this tank in any spot you're going to regret. But you do need to note that it has reverse speed. It's 14 kilometers per hour, so it will take a bit of time to get out of trouble if you put it into that trouble. but it's actually got a pretty decent top speed. 40 kilometers per hour is great, especially when it's able to average 30 kilometers per hour and sit at a moderate, should I say, power to weight ratio of 15.44. The tank weighs 53 tons. I mean, this is not a light vehicle. It will be very, very solid at ramming enemy opponents, especially lighter tier 6s. Oh man, imagine ramming an MT-25 or an SP-1C with this vehicle. You would easily take off 200, 300, 400 hit points on a good day. I mean, that would be amazing to get big rams off. I cannot wait to see this tank used in gravity. Not the fastest tank, though. 33 degrees a second of traverse speed with 26 degrees a second on the turret. The turret traverse is actually not bad at all, but the hull traverse, it's kind of similar to a WZ-113. But that makes sense. It's a big, heavy vehicle. It's got great armor, so that's what you should expect out of a vehicle of this caliber. As I said, the DPM isn't amazing, but it's pretty similar for other heavies of this class. 2000 it's okay. It'll be enough to deal with vehicles like the KVs, the KV3, or the IS. It'll be fine. What I will say about this tank is right now, it looks pretty balanced. Apart from the premium pen, I would definitely change the fact that it carries AP ammo with 255mm pen. 220 would be plenty. 255 is way too much. But really, apart from that, I wouldn't change all too much on this tank. I mean, its concealment is absolute dog water. Its mobility is good, but it's got pretty poor reverse speed. And when it comes to the standard pen, it's pretty balanced. I mean, overall, this tank has some really good statistics going for it, but some pretty bad ones to counter it out. I mean, the gun's great, apart from the fact that its dispersion is trash, the aiming time's terrible, and yeah, its DPM isn't anything amazing. So I do think that this is actually a pretty well-balanced tier 7. I'm hoping that it'll stay this way when it comes into the game. One thing I need to point out, as I always try to, is that this tank is in super test, which means that it's not even in testing yet. You can't even drive this tank or see it in normal battles yet. It is being tested on their other client and test server. So it's going to go through that testing, probably have some iterations there, or maybe not. And then once it gets through super test, it's going to make its way into the normal test where we can see it being tested in games. But usually these tanks actually don't get into normal testing. As we've seen for the Vickers CR, the T92E1, and the Object 84, Wargaming just kind of wings it when it comes to tier 9. It seems like tier 10 is the only tier they really care to balance out a crazy amount. So yeah, tier 9, tier 8, tier 7, it seems like they only put these tanks on super test, and that's it. Once they think the tanks are balanced, they send them right to the factory. So when it comes to this tank, I'm pretty excited for it. This looks like a pretty fun vehicle. It's just a Cheeto SPG gun shoved onto a tier 7 heavy. I mean, what's not to like about it? Slow, but seems to be very well armored. The tier 8 is actually pretty similar. Wait until we break into that tank tomorrow. So make sure you stay tuned. As I always like to say, I try to get out the most relevant and newest information as fast as possible, as I just got this today. So if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to click that subscribe button down below. But other than that, I'll keep you guys posted, and I'll see you around. Bye-bye.